Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, J.K. Rowling. Chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley, of number 4 Privet Drive, were proud to say they were perfectly normal. He was a director at Grunnings, which made drills. She was thin, blonde, and nosy. They had a son called Dudley, who, in their opinion, was the finest boy anywhere. The Dursleys had everything they wanted, but also harbored a secret fear that someone would discover their connection to the Potters. Potter was Mrs. Dursley's sister, but they hadn't met in years. The Dursleys shuddered to think what neighbors would say if the Potters arrived on their street. They knew the Potters had a small son, too, but had never seen him and certainly didn't want Dudley mixing with a child like that. On the dull Tuesday our story begins, Mr. Dursley noticed odd occurrences. First, a tabby cat reading a map on the corner of Privet Drive. Later, people in cloaks whispering excitedly. He caught fragments of their conversation. The Potters, that's right. Yes, their son Harry. Fear flooded him. He rushed back to his office, almost called home, then thought better of it. Potter wasn't such an unusual name. His nephew might not even be called Harry. Harvey or Harold, perhaps. No need to worry his wife, who got upset at any mention of her sister. That evening, the news reported owls flying by daylight and shooting stars across Britain. Mr. Dursley gathered his courage. Petunia, dear, you haven't heard from your sister lately, have you?" "No," she said sharply. "Why? Their son, he'd be about Dudley's age now, wouldn't he?" "I suppose so," she replied stiffly. "What's his name again? Howard, isn't it?" "Harry. Nasty common name, if you ask me." That night, as the Dursleys slept, the tabby cat remained vigilant on their garden wall. Near midnight, a man appeared suddenly on the corner, tall, thin, with silver hair and beard long enough to tuck into his belt. He wore purple robes, a cloak, and high-heeled boots. This was Albus Dumbledore. He withdrew what looked like a silver cigarette lighter, flicked it open, and clicked it. The nearest street lamp went out with a pop. He clicked 11 more times until only the cat's eyes remained visible in the darkness. "Fancy seeing you here, Professor McGonagall," he said. The cat transformed into a severe-looking woman with square glasses and an emerald cloak. "How did you know it was me?" she asked. "My dear Professor, I've never seen a cat sit so stiffly." "You'd be stiff too, sitting on a brick wall all day," she retorted. "Everyone's celebrating so carelessly that even the Muggles have noticed. It was on their news. Owls and shooting stars. They're not completely stupid. You can't blame them," said Dumbledore gently. "We've had precious little to celebrate for 11 years. "I know, but people are being downright careless," she continued. "I suppose you know who really has gone, Dumbledore." "It certainly seems so. Would you care for a lemon drop?" "No, thank you," she said coldly. "As I say, even if you know who has gone." "My dear Professor, surely a sensible person like yourself can call him by his name. All this you-know-who nonsense. For 11 years, I have been trying to persuade people to call him by his proper name, Voldemort." Professor McGonagall flinched, but continued. "What they're saying is that last night Voldemort went to Godric's Hollow, to the Potters. The rumor is that Lily and James Potter are dead." Dumbledore bowed his head. Professor McGonagall gasped. "That's not all. They're saying he tried to kill the Potter's son, Harry, but couldn't. No one knows why, but they're saying that when he couldn't kill Harry Potter, Voldemort's power somehow broke. And that's why he's gone." "We can only guess," said Dumbledore. "We may never know." A low rumbling sound broke the silence, growing louder until a huge motorcycle fell from the sky. Its rider was a giant of a man, twice as tall as normal, 5 times as wide, with wild black hair and beard. In his arms, he carried a bundle of blankets. "Hagrid," said Dumbledore. "At last. Any problems?" "No, sir. House was almost destroyed, but I got him out before the Muggles started swarming around. He fell asleep as we was flying over Bristol. Inside the blankets was a baby boy. Under a tuft of jet-black hair, they could see a lightning-shaped cut on his forehead. "Is that where?" whispered Professor McGonagall. "Yes," said Dumbledore. "He'll have that scar forever." Dumbledore took Harry and approached the Dursleys' house. He laid the baby gently on the doorstep, with a letter tucked into the blankets. The 3 stood in silence for a moment, each overcome with emotion. "Well," said Dumbledore finally, "that's that. We may as well join the celebrations." After they departed, Harry Potter slept on, not knowing he was special, not knowing he was famous. He couldn't know that at this very moment, people meeting in secret all over the country were holding up their glasses and saying in hushed voices, "To Harry Potter, the boy who lived." Chapter 2: The Vanishing Glass. Merely 10 years had passed since the Dursleys found their nephew on the doorstep, but Privet Drive had hardly changed. Only the photographs on the mantelpiece showed time's passage. No longer a large pink beach ball in bonnets, but now a blonde boy riding bicycles and playing games. The room held no sign that another boy lived there too. Yet Harry Potter was still there, asleep until his Aunt Petunia's shrill voice shattered the morning. "Up! Get up! Now!" Harry woke with a start. His aunt rapped on the door again. "Are you up yet?" she demanded. "Nearly," said Harry. "Look after the bacon. Don't you dare let it burn. Everything perfect on Dudley's birthday." Harry groaned. Dudley's birthday! How could he have forgotten? He got slowly out of bed and looked for socks, pulling a spider off one. Harry was used to spiders, because the cupboard under the stairs where he slept was full of them. When dressed, he entered the kitchen. The table was nearly hidden beneath Dudley's presents: a new computer, second television, and racing bike. Harry couldn't understand why Dudley wanted a racing bike, as he was very fat and hated exercise unless it involved punching somebody, preferably Harry. Harry was small and skinny, wearing old clothes of Dudley's, who was 4 times his size. He had a thin face, knobbly knees, black hair, and bright green eyes. Round glasses held together with tape covered his face, broken from the many times Dudley had punched him. The only thing Harry liked about his appearance was a thin, lightning-shaped scar on his forehead. His earliest memory was asking Aunt Petunia how he got it. "In the car crash when your parents died," she'd said. "And don't ask questions. Don't ask questions, the first rule for a quiet life with the Dursleys." Dudley arrived in the kitchen, looking like Uncle Vernon. Large pink face, not much neck, small blue eyes, and thick blonde hair. Aunt Petunia called him an angel. Harry thought he resembled a pig in a wig. Dudley counted his presents. 36, he said, his face falling. "That's 2 less than last year." Aunt Petunia, sensing danger, quickly promised 2 more presents while shopping. Dudley struggled with the calculation before agreeing, and Uncle Vernon chuckled. "Little Tyke wants his money's worth, just like his father." The telephone rang. Aunt Petunia answered and returned, looking worried. "Bad news, Vernon. Mrs. Figg's broken her leg. She can't take him." She jerked her head toward Harry. Harry's heart leapt. Every year on Dudley's birthday, he was left with Mrs. Figg, whose house smelled of cabbage and who showed endless photographs of her cats. "We could phone Marge," Uncle Vernon suggested. "She hates the boy," said Aunt Petunia. "What about Yvonne?" "On vacation in Mallorca." "You could leave me here," said Harry hopefully. "And find the house in ruins?" Snapped Aunt Petunia. "I won't blow up the house," Harry insisted, but they weren't listening. As they debated, Dudley began fake crying, a tactic that always worked with his mother. "Don't cry, Dinky Duddy Dums," she exclaimed, embracing him. "I don't want him to come," Dudley sobbed, shooting Harry a nasty grin through his mother's arms. The doorbell rang. Dudley's friend Piers Polkiss had arrived. Half an hour later, Harry found himself in the car headed to the zoo. Before leaving, Uncle Vernon had warned him any funny business would mean the cupboard until Christmas. Strange things often happened around Harry. Once, Aunt Petunia had cut his hair almost bald, but by morning it had grown back completely. Another time, a revolting sweater she tried forcing him into mysteriously shrank to hand puppet size. And once, he'd somehow ended up on the school kitchen roof while running from Dudley's gang. Today, though, Harry was determined nothing would go wrong. In the car, Uncle Vernon complained about motorcycles. "I had a dream about a motorcycle," Harry said suddenly. "It was flying." Uncle Vernon nearly crashed, his face turning purple. "Motorcycles don't fly." At the zoo, when the Dursleys bought ice cream for Dudley and Piers, the vendor asked Harry what he wanted before they could hustle him away. They bought him a cheap lemon ice pop, which wasn't bad, Harry thought. Harry had a wonderful morning until after lunch when they visited the reptile house. Dudley quickly found the largest snake, a Brazilian boa constrictor, but grew bored when it wouldn't move despite his father's tapping on the glass. After Dudley left, Harry stood watching the snake. It suddenly opened its eyes, raised its head level with Harry's, and winked. Harry winked back. "I know," Harry murmured. "It must be really annoying." The snake nodded vigorously. "Where do you come from?" Harry asked, then noticed the sign. Was it nice there? The snake pointed at the sign again. This specimen was bred in the zoo. "Oh, so you've never been to Brazil?" As the snake shook its head, Dudley shouted, "Look at this snake!" He pushed Harry aside roughly. What happened next was extraordinary. The glass vanished. The boa constrictor slithered out onto the floor, while people screamed and ran. As it passed Harry, he could have sworn it said, "Brazil, here I come. Thanks, amigo." On the way home, Piers mentioned, "Harry was talking to it. Weren't you, Harry?" Uncle Vernon, livid, waited until Piers left before punishing Harry. "Go, cupboard, stay, no meals." Later in his cupboard, Harry reflected on his 10 miserable years with the Dursleys. He couldn't remember his parents' death, just a flash of green light and a burning pain on his forehead. Sometimes he dreamed of an unknown relative coming to rescue him, but it never happened. Yet occasionally, strangers seemed to recognize him. A man in a violet top hat bowing, a green-dressed woman waving, a bald man shaking his hand. They always vanished before Harry could speak to them. At school, Harry was alone. Everyone knew Dudley's gang hated that odd Harry Potter with his baggy clothes and broken glasses. And nobody dared disagree with Dudley's gang. Chapter 3. The Letters from No One. The escape of the Brazilian boa constrictor earned Harry his longest ever punishment. By the time he was allowed out of his cupboard again, the summer holidays had started, and Dudley had already broken his new video camera, crashed his remote control airplane, and knocked down old Mrs. Figg as she crossed Privet Drive on her crutches. Harry spent as much time as possible out of the house, avoiding Dudley's gang, whose favorite sport was Harry hunting. When September came, Harry would be going to Stonewall High, while Dudley attended Uncle Vernon's old private school, Smeltings. They stuff people's heads down the toilet the first day at Stonewall, Dudley told Harry. Want to come upstairs and practice? No thanks, said Harry. The poor toilets never had anything as horrible as your head down it. It might be sick. Then he ran, before Dudley could work out what he'd said. One July day, Aunt Petunia took Dudley to London for his Smeltings uniform, leaving Harry at Mrs. Figg's. That evening, Dudley paraded around in his maroon tailcoat, orange knickerbockers, and flat straw hat. Uncle Vernon declared it the proudest moment of his life, while Aunt Petunia burst into tears over her ickle Dudleykins. Harry thought 2 of his ribs might crack from trying not to laugh. The next morning, Harry found a metal tub of gray water with what looked like dirty rags swimming in it. "What's this?" he asked Aunt Petunia. "Your new school uniform," she said. "I'm dyeing some of Dudley's old things gray for you." Harry seriously doubted it would look like a proper uniform, but kept quiet. The mail arrived with a click of the slot. Uncle Vernon ordered Harry to get it, after some back and forth with Dudley. 3 things lay on the doormat: a postcard from Uncle Vernon's sister Marge, a bill, and a letter for Harry. Harry picked it up and stared at it, his heart twanging like a giant elastic band. No one had ever written to him before. The envelope was thick and heavy, made of yellowish parchment, with emerald green ink addressing, Mr. H. Potter, The Cupboard Under the Stairs, 4 Privet Drive, Little Whinging, Surrey. Turning the envelope over, his hand trembling, Harry saw a purple lac seal bearing a coat of arms, a lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake, surrounding a large letter H. Back in the kitchen, Harry began to open his letter when Uncle Vernon snatched it away. "That's mine," said Harry, trying to get it back. "Who'd be writing to you?" sneered Uncle Vernon, reading it. His face changed from red to green to grayish-white. "Petunia," he gasped. After reading the first line, Aunt Petunia looked faint. "Vernon! Oh my goodness, Vernon!" "I want my letter," Harry shouted, but Uncle Vernon threw both boys into the hall and slammed the door. Through the crack beneath the door, Harry heard his aunt and uncle discussing the letter. Uncle Vernon was convinced someone was watching the house and declared, "I'm not having one in the house, Petunia. Didn't we swear when we took him in we'd stamp out that dangerous nonsense?" That evening, Uncle Vernon visited Harry in his cupboard to tell him the letter was a mistake and had been burned. When Harry protested, Uncle Vernon suddenly announced Harry would move into Dudley's 2nd bedroom. The Dursleys' house had 4 bedrooms, and Dudley kept one filled with broken toys and unread books. It only took Harry 1 trip to move everything he owned. From downstairs came the sound of Dudley bawling, "I don't want him in there. I need that room. Make him get out." The next morning, another letter arrived for Harry, now addressed to Mr. H. Potter, the smallest bedroom. Uncle Vernon wrestled it from Dudley and Harry's grasp. Harry realized someone knew he'd moved bedrooms and hadn't received his first letter. He made a plan. At 6 the next morning, Harry crept downstairs to wait for the postman, only to tread on Uncle Vernon's face. His uncle had been sleeping by the door and shouted at Harry for half an hour before telling him to make tea. When Harry returned, 3 more letters had arrived, and Uncle Vernon was tearing them to pieces. Uncle Vernon stayed home and nailed up the mail slot. "If they can't deliver them, they'll just give up," he explained, though Aunt Petunia doubted it would work. On Friday, 12 letters arrived, pushed under the door and through windows. On Saturday, 24 letters were rolled up inside eggs delivered through the window. On Sunday, Uncle Vernon was cheerful. No post on Sundays. Then 30 or 40 letters came shooting out of the fireplace. Out! Out! Uncle Vernon threw Harry into the hall and announced they were leaving. They drove for hours, stopping at a gloomy hotel where Harry and Dudley shared a room. The next morning, the hotel owner approached them. "Is one of you Mr. H. Potter? Only I got about 100 of these at the front desk." Uncle Vernon took the letters and drove the family onward, stopping at random locations before finally selecting a miserable shack on a rock in the sea during a brewing storm. As night fell, the storm raged. Harry lay on the floor under a thin blanket, watching Dudley's watch tick toward midnight, his 11th birthday. At exactly midnight, as Harry counted down the seconds, a tremendous boom shook the shack. Someone was outside, knocking to come in. Chapter 4. The Keeper of the Keys. Boom! They knocked again. Dudley jerked awake, mumbling confusedly about cannons. Uncle Vernon skidded into the room, clutching a rifle, the contents of the mysterious package he'd brought along. "Who's there?" he shouted. "I warn you, I'm armed." After a pause, smash! The door crashed to the floor. A giant of a man stood in the doorway, his face nearly hidden behind a wild tangle of hair and beard, with beetle-black eyes glinting beneath. He squeezed into the hut, casually picked up the door, and fitted it back into its frame. The storm quieted. "Couldn't make us a cup of tea, could ya? It's not been an easy journey." The giant approached the sofa where Dudley sat frozen. "Budge up, you great lump," he said. Dudley squeaked and fled behind his parents. "And here's Harry," said the giant, his beetle eyes crinkling in a smile. "Last time I saw you, you was only a baby. You look a lot like your dad, but you've got your mom's eyes." Uncle Vernon demanded the intruder leave. "You are breaking and entering." "Ah, shut up, Dursley." "You great prune," said the giant. He seized Vernon's rifle, bent it into a knot, and tossed it aside like it was rubber. Turning to Harry, he said, "A very happy birthday to ye. Got summat for ye here. I might 'a' sat on it at some point, but it'll taste all right." From his overcoat, he produced a squashed box containing a sticky chocolate cake with green icing that read, "Happy Birthday, Harry." "Who are you?" Harry asked. "Rubeus Hagrid, keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts," the giant replied, shaking Harry's whole arm with his enormous hand. Hagrid quickly made himself at home, starting a fire with mysterious means and cooking sausages. When Harry admitted he didn't know what Hogwarts was, Hagrid was shocked. "It's them as should be sorry," he barked at the Dursleys. "I knew you weren't getting your letters, but I never thought you wouldn't even know about Hogwarts. Did you never wonder where your parents learned it all?" "All what?" asked Harry. "All what?" Hagrid thundered, leaping to his feet in fury. "Do you mean to tell me that this boy knows nothing about anything?" Harry protested that he knew math and other school subjects, but Hagrid waved this away. "About our world, your world, my world, your parents' world." "What world?" "Dursley," Hagrid boomed. He turned back to Harry, bewildered. "But ye must know about your mum and dad. I mean, they're famous. You're famous." "My parents weren't famous, were they?" "Ye don't know what ye are," Hagrid said finally. Uncle Vernon found his voice. "Stop! I forbid you to tell the boy anything." Hagrid gave him a furious look. "Ye never told him? Never told him what was in the letter Dumbledore left for him? I was there." "Kept what from me?" Harry asked eagerly. "Stop! I forbid you!" yelled Uncle Vernon in panic. "Ah, go boil your heads," said Hagrid. "Harry, you're a wizard." Silence filled the hut, broken only by the sea and wind. "I'm a what?" gasped Harry. "A wizard, of course. said Hagrid. "And a thumpin' good 'un, I'd say, once you've been trained up a bit. With a mum and dad like yours, what else would you be? And I reckon it's about time you read your letter." Harry finally took the yellowish envelope addressed to Mr. H. Potter, the floor, hut on the rock, the sea. The letter informed him of his acceptance to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. After reading it, Harry had countless questions, but managed only, "What does it mean they await my owl?" "Gallopin' Golgans! That reminds me," said Hagrid. From another pocket, he produced a live owl, quill, and parchment. He scribbled a note to Professor Dumbledore, gave it to the owl, and tossed the bird into the storm as if this were perfectly normal. Uncle Vernon declared, "He's not going." "I'd like to see a great muggle like you stop him," Hagrid replied. "A what?" Harry asked. "A muggle, non-magic folk. And it's your bad luck you grew up in a family of the biggest muggles I ever laid eyes on." "We swore when we took him in we'd put a stop to that rubbish," Vernon said. "Wizard indeed." "You knew?" said Harry. "You knew I'm a wizard?" "Knew!" shrieked Aunt Petunia. "Of course we knew! How could you not be, my dratted sister being what she was? She got a letter just like that and disappeared off to that school. And came home turning teacups into rats. I was the only one who saw her for what she was, a freak." She ranted about how Lily met that Potter and had Harry, then got herself blown up. "Blown up? You told me they died in a car crash," Harry said, white-faced. "Car crash!" roared Hagrid. "How could a car crash kill Lily and James Potter? It's an outrage! Harry Potter not knowing his own story when every kid in our world knows his name." "But why? What happened?" Harry asked urgently. Hagrid's anger faded to anxiety. "I never expected this. I had no idea how much you didn't know." He threw the Dursleys a dirty look and sat down. "It begins with a person called, well, everyone in our world knows." "Who?" "I don't like saying the name. No one does." "Why not?" "People are still scared. See, there was this wizard who went bad as you could go. His name was Voldemort." Hagrid shuddered. He explained how Voldemort gathered followers 20 years ago, seeking power and killing those who opposed him. Hogwarts, under Dumbledore, remained one of the few safe places. "Your mum and dad were as good a witch and wizard as I ever knew. Head boy and girl at Hogwarts. All anyone knows is he turned up in your village on Halloween 10 years ago. You was just a year old. He came to your house and—" Hagrid pulled out a spotted handkerchief and blew his nose loudly. "You know who killed him, and then he tried to kill you, too. But he couldn't do it. Never wondered how you got that mark on your forehead. That was no ordinary cut. That's what you get when a powerful, evil curse touches you. But it didn't work on you, and that's why you're famous, Harry. No one ever lived after he decided to kill him. No one except you." Harry remembered a flash of green light and a high, cold, cruel laugh. "Load of old tosh," said Uncle Vernon, courage restored. He insulted Harry's parents as weirdos who asked for all they got. Hagrid leapt up, pointing a pink umbrella at Vernon threateningly. Vernon fell silent, flattening himself against the wall. Harry asked what happened to Voldemort. "Disappeared, vanished the same night he tried to kill you. Some say he died, others that he's still out there. Most of us reckon he lost his powers, 'cause something about you finished him, Harry." Harry couldn't believe it. "I think you must have made a mistake. I don't think I can be a wizard." Hagrid chuckled. "Never made things happen when you was scared or angry." Harry recalled strange incidents, escaping Dudley's gang mysteriously, his hair growing back after a bad haircut, the boa constrictor at the zoo. He smiled, and Hagrid beamed back. Uncle Vernon insisted Harry would attend Stonewall High, but Hagrid growled, "If he wants to go, a great muggle like you won't stop him. His name's been down ever since he was born. I am not paying for some crackpot old fool to teach him magic tricks," yelled Uncle Vernon. This was too much for Hagrid. "Never insult Albus Dumbledore in front of me." He swished his umbrella at Dudley, a flash of violet light, a firecracker sound. And suddenly, Dudley had a curly pig's tail poking through his trousers. The Dursleys fled to the other room. Hagrid looked rueful. "Shouldn't 'a' lost me temper. Meant to turn him into a pig. But I suppose he was so much like a pig anyway, there wasn't much left to do." He asked Harry not to mention the magic at Hogwarts, as he wasn't strictly supposed to do it. When Harry asked why, Hagrid admitted he'd been expelled in his 3rd year, but Dumbledore had let him stay as gamekeeper. "Why were you expelled?" Harry asked. "It's getting late," Hagrid said loudly, changing the subject. "Gotta get up to town tomorrow, get all your books and that." He gave Harry his coat to sleep under, warning, "Don't mind if it wriggles a bit. I think I still got a couple of dormice in one of the pockets." Chapter 5. Diagon Alley. Harry woke early the next morning, keeping his eyes shut tight. "It was a dream," he told himself firmly. "I dreamed a giant called Hagrid came to tell me I was going to a school for wizards." There was suddenly a loud tapping noise. Harry still didn't open his eyes, certain it was Aunt Petunia knocking on his cupboard door. The tapping continued. "All right," Harry mumbled. "I'm getting up." He sat up, and Hagrid's heavy coat fell off him. The hut was full of sunlight, and there was an owl rapping its claw on the window, a newspaper held in its beak. Harry scrambled to his feet, filled with joy. He opened the window, and the owl dropped the newspaper on Hagrid before beginning to attack his coat. "Hagrid," said Harry, "there's an owl." "Pay him," Hagrid grunted from the sofa. "He wants paid for delivering the paper." After rummaging through Hagrid's numerous pockets, Harry found some strange coins and, following Hagrid's instructions, gave the owl 5 bronze nuts. "Best be off, Harry," said Hagrid, stretching. "Gotta get up to London and buy all your stuff for school." Harry felt his happiness deflate. "I haven't got any money, and Uncle Vernon won't pay for me to learn magic." "Don't worry about that," said Hagrid. "D'ye think your parents didn't leave you anything? First stop is Gringotts. Wizards' Bank." "Wizards have banks?" "Just the one. Run by goblins." Harry dropped the bit of sausage he was holding. "Goblins?" "Yeah, so you'd be mad to try and rob it." "Never mess with goblins, Harry." They sailed back to shore in the boat, which Hagrid had secretly enchanted to move quickly. In the train to London, Hagrid took up 2 seats and knitted what looked like a canary yellow circus tent. Harry unfolded his Hogwarts supply list, reading about robes, pointed hats, spellbooks, and cauldrons. "Can we buy all this in London?" he wondered aloud. "If you know where to go," said Hagrid. They walked through busy London streets until Hagrid stopped suddenly. "This is it," he said. "The Leaky Cauldron. It's a famous place." It was a tiny, grubby pub that the passing people didn't seem to notice. Harry had the strange feeling that only he and Hagrid could see it. Inside, the chatter stopped when they entered. Everyone seemed to know Hagrid. "The usual Hagrid?" asked the bartender. "Can't, Tom. I'm on Hogwarts business," said Hagrid, clapping his hand on Harry's shoulder. The bartender peered at Harry. "Good Lord, can this be?" The Leaky Cauldron fell silent. "Bless my soul," whispered the bartender. "Harry Potter, what an honor." He seized Harry's hand, tears in his eyes. "Welcome back, Mr. Potter." Harry found himself shaking hands with everyone. Doris Crockford kept coming back for more handshakes. A pale young man, Professor Quirrell, would be teaching defense against the dark arts. though he seemed terrified of his own subject. Finally, Hagrid led Harry through a small courtyard behind the pub. He tapped a brick wall with his umbrella, and the bricks rearranged themselves to form an archway. "Welcome," said Hagrid, "to Diagon Alley." Harry wished for 8 more eyes as they walked up the cobbled street. There were shops selling cauldrons, owls, broomsticks, robes, telescopes, strange silver instruments, spellbooks, and potion ingredients. They reached Gringotts, a snowy white building towering over the other shops. A goblin in uniform bowed them inside. Beyond silver doors with an ominous warning about thieves, they entered a vast marble hall where 100 goblins worked. Hagrid presented Harry's key and a mysterious letter from Professor Dumbledore about you-know-what in Vault 713. A goblin named Griphook led them through a stone passageway with railway tracks where they boarded a cart that hurtled through underground tunnels. At Harry's vault, green smoke billowed out when it was unlocked. Inside were mounds of gold coins, columns of silver, and heaps of bronze nuts. "All yours," smiled Hagrid. Harry couldn't believe it. A fortune, while the Dursleys had always complained about his cost. Hagrid explained the wizard currency as they filled a bag. Their next stop was the high-security vault, which had no keyhole. Griphook simply stroked the door with his finger, and it melted away. Inside was nothing but a small, grubby package that Hagrid quickly pocketed. Back in the sunlight, Harry didn't know where to run first with his money bag. Hagrid suggested starting with uniforms but excused himself for a pick-me-up, still queasy from the cart ride. In Madame Malkin's shop, Harry met a pale boy with a drawling voice who reminded him of Dudley. The boy spoke of racing brooms, Quidditch, and Hogwarts houses, particularly looking down on Hufflepuff. When he learned Hagrid was with Harry, he called him a savage. "I think he's brilliant," Harry said coldly. "Where are your parents?" the boy asked. "They're dead," Harry replied shortly. "But they were our kind, weren't they?" pressed the boy, who then expressed distaste for admitting non-wizarding families to Hogwarts. Harry was relieved when his fitting finished, providing an excuse to leave. As they ate ice cream afterward, Harry asked Hagrid about Quidditch. "Blimey, Harry, I keep forgetting how little you know, not knowing about Quidditch." "Don't make me feel worse," said Harry, telling Hagrid about the pale boy's comments. "You're not from a Muggle family," Hagrid reassured him. "Some of the best wizards I ever saw were the only ones with magic in a long line of Muggles. Look at your mum." He explained that Quidditch was a wizard sport played on broomsticks, and that Hogwarts had 4 houses, including Slytherin, from which came all the dark wizards, including you-know-who. They visited the bookshop, Flourish and Blots, where Harry had to be dragged away from a book of curses. At the apothecary, he examined unicorn horns and beetle eyes, while Hagrid purchased basic potion ingredients. "Just your wand left." Hagrid checked the list. "And I still haven't got you a birthday present." Despite Harry's protests, Hagrid bought him a beautiful snowy owl. Harry stammered his thanks repeatedly. Their final stop was Ollivander's, a narrow shop with peeling gold letters reading "Makers of Fine Wands since 382 BC." Mr. Ollivander, an old man with pale, moon-like eyes, recognized Harry immediately. "You have your mother's eyes," he said softly, describing her wand and his father's in detail. He touched Harry's lightning scar. "I'm sorry to say I sold the wand that did it," he said. 13.5 inches, Powerful wand, very powerful, and in the wrong hands. After measuring Harry, Mr. Ollivander had him try numerous wands, snatching each away almost immediately. Finally, a holly and phoenix feather wand produced a stream of red and gold sparks. Curious, curious, Mr. Ollivander murmured. What's curious? Asked Harry. The phoenix whose tail feather is in your wand gave another feather, just one other. Its brother gave you that scar. Harry swallowed hard as Mr. Ollivander continued. We must expect great things from you, Mr. Potter. After all, he who must not be named did great things. Terrible, yes, but great. As they rode the underground back, laden with packages and Harry's owl, Harry remained quiet, processing everything. You all right, Harry? Asked Hagrid. You're very quiet. Everyone thinks I'm special, Harry said finally. All those people in the leaky cauldron, Professor Quirrell, Mr. Ollivander. But I don't know anything about magic. How can they expect great things? I'm famous, and I can't even remember what I'm famous for. Hagrid smiled kindly. Don't you worry, Harry. You'll learn fast enough. Everyone starts at the beginning at Hogwarts. Just be yourself. I know it's hard. You've been singled out, and that's always hard. But you'll have a great time at Hogwarts. I did, still do, smatter of fact. He helped Harry onto the train back to the Dursleys and handed him an envelope. Your ticket for Hogwarts. 1st of September. King's Cross. It's all on your ticket. Harry pressed his nose against the window to watch Hagrid until he was out of sight. But when he blinked, Hagrid had gone. Chapter 6. The Journey from Platform 9 3/4. Harry's last month with the Dursleys wasn't fun. Half terrified, half furious, they acted as though any chair with Harry in it were empty. Though an improvement in many ways, it became depressing after a while. Harry kept to his room with his new owl for company. He had decided to call her Hedwig, a name found in a history of magic. His school books proved fascinating, and he read late into the night as Hedwig swooped in and out of the window. Every night, Harry ticked off another day on the paper pinned to his wall, counting down to September the 1st. On the last day of August, Harry approached his aunt and uncle about getting to King's Cross Station. Uncle Vernon grunted agreement but couldn't resist a jab. Funny way to get to a wizard's school, the train. Magic carpets all got punctures, have they? When Harry mentioned Platform 9 3/4, Uncle Vernon sneered, Don't talk rubbish. There is no Platform 9 3/4. It's on my ticket, Harry insisted. Barking mad, the lot of them, Uncle Vernon growled. The next morning they reached King's Cross at 10:30. Uncle Vernon dumped Harry's trunk onto a cart and wheeled it into the station, stopping between platforms 9 and 10 with a nasty grin. Well, there you are, boy. Your platform should be somewhere in the middle, but they don't seem to have built it yet, do they? He left without another word. Harry's mouth went dry as he watched the Dursleys drive away laughing. The large clock showed 10 minutes until 11, and he had no idea how to find the Hogwarts train. Just then, Harry caught words from a passing family, packed with muggles, of course. Harry swung around to see a plump woman talking to 4 boys with flaming red hair, each pushing a trunk like his. Heart hammering, he followed them. Now, what's the platform number? The woman asked. 9 3/4, piped a small girl with the same red hair. Harry watched as the oldest boy marched toward the barrier between platforms 9 and 10, and suddenly vanished. His twin brothers followed, disappearing just as mysteriously. Excuse me, Harry said to the woman. Hello, dear, she replied kindly. First time at Hogwarts? Ron's new too. She pointed at her youngest son, tall and thin with freckles and a long nose. The thing is, Harry said nervously, I don't know how to get onto the platform. She smiled. Not to worry. All you have to do is walk straight at the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. Don't stop, and don't be scared you'll crash into it. Harry nodded, positioned his cart, and started walking toward the barrier. It looked very solid. He walked faster, then broke into a run, closing his eyes for the expected crash. It didn't come. Harry opened his eyes to see a scarlet steam engine waiting beside a platform crowded with people. A sign overhead read, "Hogwarts Express, 11 o'clock." Looking back, he saw an iron archway where the barrier had been, with the words "Platform 9 3/4." Smoke drifted over the chattering crowd. Cats wound between people's legs, while owls hooted discontentedly. Harry pushed his cart down the platform, passing students reuniting with families and showing off pets. He found an empty compartment, struggled with his heavy trunk, and was relieved when offered help. "Want a hand?" It was one of the red-haired twins. "Yes, please," Harry panted. With the twins' help, his trunk was safely stowed. As Harry pushed his sweaty hair back, one twin spotted his lightning scar. "Blimey," said the other twin. "Are you?" "Harry Potter," Harry confirmed. The twins gaped before their mother called them away. Through the window, Harry watched the red-haired family's goodbyes, fascinated by their warm banter. "Now, you two, this year you behave yourselves," their mother warned the twins. "If I get one more owl telling me you've blown up a toilet." "Blown up a toilet? We've never blown up a toilet." "Great idea, though." "Thanks, Mum." Harry couldn't help but smile at their exchange. Soon, they discovered his identity, causing excitement among the family, though their mother sternly forbade them from asking Harry about you-know-who. As the train began moving, Harry felt a leap of excitement. Whatever awaited him had to be better than what he was leaving be. The compartment door slid open, and the youngest red-headed boy entered. "Anyone sitting there?" he asked, pointing at the seat opposite Harry. "Everywhere else is full." After the twins stopped by to introduce themselves, Fred and George Weasley, and their brother Ron, an awkward silence fell until Ron blurted out, "Are you really Harry Potter?" When Harry nodded and showed his lightning scar, Ron stared in awe. "So that's where you-know-who?" "Yes," said Harry, "but I can't remember it." "Well, I remember a lot of green light, but nothing else." Their conversation flowed naturally after that. Harry learned about Ron's large wizarding family. He was the 6th Weasley to attend Hogwarts, with much to live up to. Ron seemed embarrassed about his hand-me-downs, including his fat gray rat Scabbers. Harry assured him that money had never been plentiful in his life either, describing the Dursleys' neglect. This seemed to cheer Ron until Harry casually mentioned Voldemort's name. "You said you-know-whose name," Ron gasped, both shocked and impressed. "I'm not trying to be brave," Harry explained. "I just never knew you shouldn't." Around midday, a dimpled woman with a snack trolley stopped by their compartment. Harry, who'd never had pocket money before, bought some of everything. Chocolate frogs, Bertie Bott's every flavor beans, pumpkin pasties, and other magical treats. "Hungry, are you?" Ron asked as Harry returned with his haul. "Starving," Harry replied, then noticed Ron's homemade sandwiches. "Swap you for one of these," he offered, holding up a pasty. "You don't want this. It's all dry," Ron said, but Harry insisted. It was a nice feeling, sharing food with a new friend. The chocolate frogs contained collectible cards of famous witches and wizards, and Harry was amazed to see the pictured Albus Dumbledore move and disappear from his card. "In the Muggle world, people just stay put in photos," Harry explained. "What? They don't move at all?" Ron sounded astonished. "Weird." They had a good time sampling every flavor beans, toast, coconut, and strawberry, but also grass, sardine, and pepper, while the countryside outside grew wilder. Their peaceful journey was interrupted twice, first by a round-faced boy searching for his lost toad, then by a bossy girl with bushy brown hair who introduced herself as Hermione Granger. She spoke rapidly about magic, Hogwarts houses, and her extensive pre-reading, leaving both boys feeling rather intimidated. "Whatever house I'm in, I hope she's not in it," Ron muttered after she left. Harry asked about the Hogwarts houses, learning that Ron's entire family had been in Gryffindor, while the dreaded Slytherin had been Voldemort's house. Their conversation drifted to Ron's older brothers' careers, Charlie studying dragons and Bill working for Gringotts, before Ron enthusiastically explained Quidditch, the wizarding sport that Harry knew nothing about. Their pleasant conversation was interrupted by three boys entering the compartment. The pale boy Harry had met in Diagon Alley, flanked by two large, mean-looking companions. "Is it true?" the pale boy asked. "They're saying Harry Potter's in this compartment." He introduced himself as Draco Malfoy and his companions as Crabbe and Goyle. When Ron snickered at his name, Malfoy sneered. "Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask who you are. My father told me all the Weasleys have red hair, freckles, and more children than they can afford." Turning to Harry, he continued, "You'll soon find out some wizarding families are much better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there." Harry declined his extended hand. "I think I can tell who the wrong sort are for myself. Thanks." A confrontation ensued, ending only when Ron's rat scabbers bit Goyle's finger, sending the three boys fleeing. As evening fell, the train slowed down. A voice announced their imminent arrival, instructing students to leave their luggage aboard. Harry's stomach lurched with nerves as they joined the crowd in the corridor. On the tiny, dark platform, a familiar voice boomed. First years over here. All right there, Harry?" Hagrid's beaming face appeared over the sea of heads, leading them down a steep path to the edge of a great black lake. Across the water stood a magnificent castle with many turrets and towers perched atop a mountain, windows sparkling in the starry sky. "No more'n 4 to a boat," Hagrid called, directing them to a fleet of small vessels. Everyone fell silent as they glided across the smooth lake toward the towering castle. They passed through a curtain of ivy into a dark tunnel, eventually reaching an underground harbor. After climbing a passageway and stone steps, they gathered around an enormous oak door. Hagrid raised his gigantic fist and knocked 3 times. Chapter 7: The Sorting Hat. The door swung open to reveal a tall, black-haired witch in emerald green robes. She had a very stern face, and Harry's first thought was that this was not someone to cross. "The first years, Professor McGonagall," said Hagrid. "Thank you, Hagrid. I will take them from here." The entrance hall was enormous. The Dursleys' entire house could have fit inside it. Stone walls lit by flaming torches rose to a ceiling too high to make out, and a magnificent marble staircase led to the upper floors. Professor McGonagall led them to a small chamber off the hall, where they huddled nervously together. "Welcome to Hogwarts," she said. "Before you take your seats in the Great Hall, you will be sorted into your houses. The sorting is a very important ceremony because your house will be like your family within Hogwarts. The 4 houses are Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Each has its own noble history and has produced outstanding witches and wizards." She explained the point system and house cup, then advised them to smarten themselves up before departing. Harry frantically tried to flatten his unruly hair. "How exactly do they sort us into houses?" Harry asked Ron. "Some sort of test, I think. Fred said it hurts a lot, but I think he was joking." Harry's heart jolted. A test? In front of the whole school? He knew no magic yet. Everyone looked terrified, except Hermione Granger, who was whispering rapidly about all the spells she'd learned. Suddenly, about 20 pearly white transparent ghosts streamed through the back wall. They seemed to be arguing about someone named Peeves until a ghost in a ruff noticed the first years. "New students!" exclaimed the fat friar. "About to be sorted? Hope to see you in Hufflepuff, my old house, you know." Professor McGonagall returned and instructed them to form a line. Harry's legs felt like lead as they entered the Great Hall, a splendid place lit by thousands of floating candles, with 4 long tables where students sat before glittering golden plates. At the top was the high table for teachers. Harry looked up to see a velvety black ceiling dotted with stars. Hermione whispered, "It's bewitched to look like the sky outside. I read about it in Hogwarts, a history." Professor McGonagall placed a 4-legged stool before them, topped with a pointed wizard's hat, patched, frayed, and extremely dirty. To Harry's astonishment, a rip near the brim opened wide like a mouth, and the hat began to sing about the 4 houses: brave Gryffindor, loyal Hufflepuff, wise Ravenclaw, and cunning Slytherin. The whole hall applauded as the hat finished. Ron whispered, "So we've just got to try on the hat. I'll kill Fred. He was going on about wrestling a troll." Harry smiled weakly, wishing they could try it on without everyone watching. He didn't feel particularly brave or clever at the moment. Professor McGonagall began calling names. Abbott, Hannah, became a Hufflepuff. Boot, Terry, a Ravenclaw. Harry noticed that sometimes the hat shouted immediately, while other times it deliberated. When Potter Harry was called, whispers erupted throughout the hall. "Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter?" The last thing Harry saw before the hat dropped over his eyes was the hall full of people craning to get a look at him. Said a small voice in his ear. "Difficult, very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent, oh my goodness, yes, and a nice thirst to prove yourself. So where shall I put you?" Harry gripped the stool and thought, "Not Slytherin, not Slytherin." "Not Slytherin, eh? Are you sure? You could be great, you know. It's all here in your head, and Slytherin will help you on the way to greatness, no doubt about that. No? Well, if you're sure, better be Gryffindor." The Gryffindor table erupted in the loudest cheer yet as Harry walked shakily toward them. Percy the prefect shook his hand vigorously while the Weasley twins yelled, "We got Potter, we got Potter." Harry sat opposite the ghost in the ruff, who introduced himself as Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington, resident ghost of Gryffindor Tower, though Ron immediately recognized him as Nearly Headless Nick. When asked how one could be nearly headless, Sir Nicholas irritably pulled his left ear, causing his head to swing off his neck and fall onto his shoulder, as if on a hinge. At the high table, Harry recognized Albus Dumbledore from his chocolate frog card. He also spotted Professor Quirrell speaking with a hook-nosed teacher. Suddenly, the hook-nosed teacher looked straight into Harry's eyes, and a sharp pain shot across Harry's scar. "Who's that teacher talking to Professor Quirrell?" Harry asked Percy. "That's Professor Snape. He teaches potions, but everyone knows he's after Quirrell's job. Knows an awful lot about the dark arts, Snape." After the feast, Dumbledore gave notices. The forest was forbidden, no magic in corridors, Quidditch trials in the second week, and, most curiously, the third-floor corridor on the right-hand side was out of bounds. To everyone who does not wish to die a very painful death. The school then sang the Hogwarts song, each student to their own tune, before being dismissed to bed. The Gryffindor first years followed Percy through the castle, past whispering portraits and hidden passages, until they reached a portrait of a fat woman in pink. "Password?" she asked. "Caput Draconis," replied Percy. The portrait swung forward, revealing a round hole, through which they climbed into the cozy Gryffindor common room. Too tired to talk, the boys found their dormitory, changed into pajamas, and fell into their four-poster beds. That night, Harry had a strange dream about Professor Quirrell's turban telling him to transfer to Slytherin. As he struggled to remove it, Malfoy appeared, laughing, then transformed into Snape, whose laugh became high and cold. There was a burst of green light, and Harry woke sweating and shaking. By morning, however, he had forgotten the dream entirely. Chapter 8. The Potions Master. There, look. Where? Next to the tall kid with the red hair. Wearing the glasses? Did you see his scar? Whispers followed Harry from the moment he left his dormitory. People stood on tiptoe to get a look at him or doubled back in corridors, staring. Harry wished they wouldn't, as he was trying to concentrate on finding his way to classes. Hogwarts was a maze of 142 staircases. Wide, sweeping ones, narrow, rickety ones, some that led somewhere different on a Friday, some with vanishing steps. Then there were doors that wouldn't open unless you asked politely or tickled them in exactly the right place. It was hard to remember where anything was because it all seemed to move around a lot. The ghosts didn't help either. Nearly Headless Nick was always happy to point new Gryffindors in the right direction, but Peeves the Poltergeist was worth 2 locked doors and a trick staircase if you met him when late for class. Even worse than Peeves was the caretaker, Argus Filch. Harry and Ron got on his wrong side their very first morning when he found them trying to force their way through what turned out to be the entrance to the out-of-bounds corridor. Filch owned a cat called Mrs. Norris, a scrawny, dust-colored creature with bulging, lamp-like eyes. She patrolled the corridors alone, and if you broke a rule in front of her, she'd whisk off for Filch, who'd appear, wheezing, seconds later. The classes themselves proved challenging. There was more to magic than waving your wand and saying funny words. They studied the night skies through telescopes, learned about plants in herbology with Professor Sprout, and endured the droning lectures of ghostly Professor Binns in history of magic. Professor McGonagall was strict and clever, giving them a stern warning in their first Transfiguration class. Transfiguration is some of the most complex and dangerous magic you will learn at Hogwarts. Anyone messing around in my class will leave and not come back. Friday was important for Harry and Ron. They finally managed to find their way to breakfast without getting lost. "What have we got today?" Harry asked, pouring sugar on his porridge. "Double potions with the Slytherins," said Ron. "Snape's head of Slytherin House. They say he always favors them." Just then, the mail arrived. Hundreds of owls streamed into the great hall, circling until they saw their owners. This morning, Harry's owl Hedwig dropped a note onto his plate. It was from Hagrid, inviting him for tea that afternoon. Harry quickly scribbled back an acceptance. It was lucky Harry had tea with Hagrid to look forward to, because potions turned out to be the worst experience yet. Professor Snape started class by taking roll call, pausing at Harry's name. "Ah, yes," he said softly. "Harry Potter, our new celebrity." Draco Malfoy and his friends sniggered. Snape's black eyes were cold and empty, making you think of dark tunnels. "You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making," he began in barely more than a whisper. "I can teach you how to bottle fame, brew glory, even stopper death. if you aren't as big a bunch of dunderheads as I usually have to teach." "Potter," said Snape suddenly, "what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" Harry had no idea. "I don't know, sir," he said, while Hermione's hand shot into the air. "Fame clearly isn't everything," sneered Snape, ignoring Hermione. "Let's try again. Where would you look if I told you to find me a bezoar?" "I don't know, sir." "What is the difference, Potter, between monkshood and wolfsbane?" Hermione stretched her hand even higher. "I don't know," said Harry quietly. "I think Hermione does, though. Why don't you try her?" A few people laughed, but Snape was not pleased. "Sit down," he snapped at Hermione. "For your information, Potter, asphodel and wormwood make a sleeping potion known as the Draught of Living Death. A bezoar is a stone from a goat's stomach that will save you from most poisons. Monkshood and wolfsbane are the same plant, also called aconite." He paused. "And a point will be taken from Gryffindor for your cheek, Potter." Things didn't improve as the lesson continued. Snape put them in pairs to mix a potion to cure goils, criticizing everyone except Malfoy. When Neville melted his cauldron, sending potion across the floor and causing boils to spring up on his skin, Snape rounded on Harry. "You, Potter, why didn't you tell him not to add the quills? That's another point you've lost for Gryffindor." Harry's spirits were low as they left the dungeon. Why does Snape hate me so much? He wondered aloud. "Cheer up," said Ron. "Can I come meet Hagrid with you?" At Hagrid's wooden house on the edge of the forest, they were greeted enthusiastically by his enormous boarhound Fang. Over rock-hard cakes, Harry told Hagrid about Snape's lesson. "He seemed to really hate me," said Harry. "Rubbish," said Hagrid, though Harry noticed he didn't quite meet his eyes. While Ron told Hagrid about his brother Charlie's work with dragons, Harry spotted a newspaper clipping about a break-in at Gringotts on July 31st, his birthday. The vault had been emptied that same day. Harry remembered Hagrid had removed a mysterious package from Vault 713 during their visit to Gringotts. As they walked back to the castle, pockets heavy with uneaten rock cakes, Harry wondered if that had been what the thieves were looking for, and whether Hagrid knew something about Snape that he wasn't telling. Chapter 9. The Midnight Duel. Harry had never believed he would meet a boy he hated more than Dudley, but that was before he met Draco Malfoy. When a notice appeared in the Gryffindor common room announcing that flying lessons would be starting on Thursday, with Gryffindor and Slytherin learning together, Harry's heart sank. "Typical," said Harry darkly. "Just what I always wanted, to make a fool of myself on a broomstick in front of Malfoy." "You don't know that you'll make a fool of yourself," said Ron reasonably. "Anyway, I know Malfoy's always going on about how good he is at Quidditch, but I bet that's all talk." At breakfast on Thursday, a barn owl brought Neville a small glass sphere called a remembrall from his grandmother. "It tells you if you've forgotten something," he explained, as it glowed scarlet in his hand. When Malfoy, passing by, snatched it, Harry and Ron jumped to their feet. But Professor McGonagall appeared instantly. "What's going on?" "Malfoy's got my remembrall, Professor." Scowling, Malfoy dropped it back on the table. "Just looking," he said, before sloping away. That afternoon, under a clear, breezy sky, the first years gathered on the lawn for their flying lesson. Madame Hooch, with her short, gray hair and hawk-like yellow eyes, instructed them to stand by the school brooms. "Stick out your right hand over your broom and say 'up,'" she commanded. Harry's broom jumped into his hand at once, but he was one of the few. When Madame Hooch told them to mount their brooms, Harry and Ron were delighted when she corrected Malfoy's grip, telling him he'd been doing it wrong for years. Before Madame Hooch could blow her whistle for takeoff, Neville, nervous and jumpy, pushed off hard and rose uncontrollably. 12 feet, 20 feet, before slipping sideways and crashing to the ground with a broken wrist. As Madame Hooch escorted him to the hospital wing, she warned the class, "None of you is to move while I take this boy to the hospital wing." The moment they were gone, Malfoy burst into laughter and snatched up Neville's fallen Remembrall. "Look, it's that stupid thing Longbottom's Gran sent him. Give that here, Malfoy," said Harry quietly. Malfoy's nasty smile widened as he mounted his broom. "I think I'll leave it somewhere for Longbottom to find. How about up a tree?" Blood pounding in his ears, Harry grabbed his broom, ignoring Hermione's warnings. He kicked off hard and soared upward, experiencing a rush of fierce joy. This was something he could do without being taught. He turned sharply to face Malfoy, who looked stunned. "Give it here," Harry called, "or I'll knock you off that broom." "Catch it if you can, then," shouted Malfoy, throwing the Remembrall high and streaking back toward the ground. Harry saw the ball rise and then fall. He leaned forward, pointed his broom handle down, and dived. Wind whistled in his ears, mingled with screams from below as he stretched out his hand. A foot from the ground he caught it, pulling his broom straight just in time. "Harry Potter!" Professor McGonagall was running toward them. Harry's heart sank. "Never, in all my time at Hogwarts," she spluttered, almost speechless with shock. "Follow me, now." To Harry's surprise, she led him to Professor Flitwick's classroom and asked for Wood, who turned out to be Oliver Wood, captain of the Gryffindor Quidditch team. "Potter, this is Oliver Wood. Wood, I've found you a seeker." Wood's expression changed from puzzlement to delight. He caught that thing in his hand after a 50-foot dive. Professor McGonagall explained. "Didn't even scratch himself. Charlie Weasley couldn't have done it." At dinner, Ron gaped as Harry revealed the news. "Seeker? But first years never." "A century," said Harry. "Wood told me." Later that evening, Malfoy approached their table. "I'd take you on any time on my own," he challenged Harry. "Tonight, if you want. Wizard's duel. Wands only, no contact." "I'm his second," Ron quickly volunteered. "Who's yours?" "Crad," said Malfoy. "Midnight, all right? We'll meet you in the trophy room." That night, Harry and Ron sneaked out of Gryffindor Tower, only to be confronted by Hermione Granger in her pink bathrobe. "I can't believe you're going to do this, Harry," she chided. When they ignored her, she followed them out, only to find herself locked out as the fat lady had gone visiting. They encountered Neville, also locked out, and reluctantly allowed both to join them. The trophy room was empty when they arrived. Then they heard Filch's voice nearby. "Sniff around, my sweet. They might be lurking in a corner." They fled through the corridors, eventually crashing into a suit of armor with a deafening clang. "Run!" Harry yelled as they sprinted away, eventually pausing near the Charms classroom. "Malfoy tricked you," Hermione said, catching her breath. Filch knew someone was going to be in the trophy room. Their escape was hindered by Keeves the poltergeist, who bellowed, "Students, out of bed!" They ran until they reached a locked door. Hermione grabbed Harry's wand and whispered, "Alohomora." The lock clicked open, and they piled inside. They weren't in a room, but the forbidden corridor on the 3rd floor. Before them stood a monstrous 3-headed dog filling the space from floor to ceiling, its 6 eyes staring at them and saliva dripping from yellowish fangs. They slammed the door shut and ran all the way back to Gryffindor Tower. Collapsed in armchairs, Ron gasped. What do they think they're doing, keeping a thing like that locked up in a school? "You don't use your eyes, do you?" Hermione snapped. It was standing on a trap door. It's obviously guarding something. As Harry climbed back into bed, He remembered what Hagrid had said about Gringotts being the safest place to hide something, except perhaps Hogwarts. He realized he had found where the grubby little package from Vault 713 was hidden. Chapter 10. Halloween. Malfoy couldn't believe his eyes when he saw that Harry and Ron were still at Hogwarts the next day, looking tired but perfectly cheerful. After their adventure with the three-headed dog, Harry filled Ron in about the mysterious package that seemed to have been moved from Gringotts to Hogwarts. "It's either really valuable or really dangerous," said Ron. "Or both," said Harry. Hermione was now refusing to speak to them, but they saw this as an added bonus. All they wanted was a way to get back at Malfoy, and to their delight, just such an opportunity arrived in the mail about a week later. As the owls flooded into the Great Hall, everyone's attention was caught by a long, thin package carried by 6 large screech owls. Harry was amazed when they dropped it right in front of him. Another owl dropped a letter which read, "Do not open the parcel at the table. It contains your new Nimbus 2000, but I don't want everybody knowing you've got a broomstick or they'll all want one. Oliver Wood will meet you tonight on the Quidditch field at 7 o'clock for your first training session." "A Nimbus 2000, Ron moaned enviously. "I've never even touched one." Halfway across the entrance hall, they found Malfoy with Crabbe and Goyle. Malfoy seized the package, felt it, and sneered, "Yeah, that's a broomstick. You'll be in for it this time, Potter. First years aren't allowed them." Ron couldn't resist. "It's not any old broomstick. It's a Nimbus 2000. What did you say you've got at home, Malfoy? A Comet 260? Before their argument could escalate, Professor Flitwick appeared. When Malfoy quickly informed him about Harry's broomstick, Flitwick merely beamed. Yes, that's right. Professor McGonagall told me all about the special circumstances, Potter." Later that evening, Harry met Oliver Wood at the Quidditch field. Wood explained the rules of Quidditch, showing Harry the 4 different balls. The quaffle for scoring, the 2 bludgers that tried to knock players off their brooms, and the tiny golden snitch that Harry, as seeker, would need to catch to end the game and earn his team an extra 150 points. After an impressive practice session where Harry caught every golf ball Wood threw, Wood exclaimed happily, "That Quidditch Cup'll have our name on it this year." Perhaps it was because he was now so busy with Quidditch practice and homework, but Harry could hardly believe it when he realized he'd already been at Hogwarts 2 months. The castle felt more like home than Privet Drive ever had. On Halloween morning, they woke to the delicious smell of baking pumpkin. In Charm's class, Professor Flitwick put them into pairs to practice making objects fly. Harry was partnered with Seamus, while Ron was paired with Hermione, who still wasn't speaking to either of them. "Wingardium Leviosa," Ron shouted, waving his arms. "You're saying it wrong," Hermione snapped. "It's Wingardium Leviosa. Make the gar nice and long." When Hermione successfully performed the spell, Ron was in a foul mood by the end of class. "It's no wonder no one can stand her," he said to Harry as they pushed through the crowded corridor. "She's a nightmare, honestly." Someone knocked into Harry. It was Hermione, and she was in tears. "I think she heard you," said Harry. Hermione didn't turn up for the next class and wasn't seen all afternoon. On their way to the Great Hall for the Halloween feast, Harry and Ron overheard that she was crying in the girls' bathroom. The Halloween decorations in the Great Hall were spectacular. 1,000 live bats fluttered from the walls and ceiling, while another 1,000 swooped over the tables, making the candles and the pumpkins stutter. The feast had just begun when Professor Quirrell came sprinting into the hall, terror on his face. "Troll, In the dungeons. Thought you ought to know, he gasped before fainting. After Dumbledore ordered the prefects to lead their houses back to dormitories, Harry suddenly realized that Hermione didn't know about the troll. Reluctantly, Ron agreed they should warn her. As they hurried toward the girls' bathroom, they spotted Snape heading toward the third floor. Before they could wonder why, they caught a whiff of a foul stench and heard a low grunting. Turning a corner, they saw it. A 12-foot mountain troll with granite gray skin and a tiny head, dragging a huge wooden club. To their horror, the troll entered the girls' bathroom. They heard a petrified scream and realized too late that they had inadvertently locked Hermione in with the monster. Rushing in, they found Hermione shrinking against the wall as the troll advanced on her, smashing sinks off the walls. "Confuse it!" Harry shouted, throwing a tap against the wall. The troll turned to Harry, raising its club. "Oi, pea-brain!" yelled Ron, throwing a metal pipe. As the troll cornered Ron, Harry took a flying leap onto the troll's back, accidentally lodging his wand up the creature's nostril. While Harry clung desperately to the thrashing troll, Ron pulled out his wand and cried, "Wingardium Leviosa!" The troll's club flew out of its hand, rose high into the air, then dropped with a sickening crack onto its owner's head. The troll swayed and collapsed with a thud that shook the room. Moments later, Professors McGonagall, Snape, and Quirrell burst in. McGonagall was furious until Hermione stepped forward. "Please, Professor McGonagall, they were looking for me. I went looking for the troll because I thought I could deal with it on my own." Harry and Ron were stunned at Hermione's lie to protect them. McGonagall took 5 points from Hermione, but awarded 5 each to Harry and Ron for their bravery. That night in the common room, there was an awkward moment when the three faced each other. Then, none of them looking at each other, they all said thanks and hurried off to get plates. But from that moment on, Hermione Granger became their friend. There are some things you can't share without ending up liking each other. And knocking out a 12-foot mountain troll is one of them. Chapter 11, Quidditch. As November arrived, bitter cold swept across Hogwarts. The mountains turned icy gray and the lake resembled chilled steel. Each morning, frost blanketed the grounds. From upstairs windows, students could spot Hagrid defrosting broomsticks on the Quidditch field, wrapped in his moleskin overcoat and enormous beaverskin boots. The Quidditch season had begun, and Harry would play his first match on Saturday, Gryffindor versus Slytherin. If they won, Gryffindor would move up to second place in the House Championship. Few had seen Harry play since Wood had decided to keep their secret weapon under wraps. But somehow the news of Harry's position as Seeker had leaked, and he couldn't decide which was worse, people predicting his brilliance or those who joked about running beneath him with mattresses. Harry was grateful for Hermione's friendship. Between Wood's relentless Quidditch practices and his mounting homework, he would have been lost without her help. She had lent him Quidditch Through the Ages, which proved fascinating. Harry learned about the 700 possible Quidditch fouls, all committed during one notorious World Cup match in 1473, that Seekers were typically the smallest players, and that while deaths were rare, referees had been known to vanish, only to reappear months later in the Sahara Desert. The day before Harry's first match, the three friends huddled in the freezing courtyard around Hermione's bright blue flames, which she had conjured into a jam jar. When Snape limped across the yard, they moved closer together, hiding the fire. Something in their guilty expressions caught his eye. "What's that you've got there, Potter?" Snape demanded. Harry showed him Quidditch Through the Ages. "Library books are not to be taken outside the school," said Snape, confiscating it. 5 points from Gryffindor. "He's just made that rule up," Harry muttered as Snape limped away. "Wonder what's wrong with his leg." "Dunno, but I hope it's really hurting him," said Ron bitterly. Later that evening, Harry decided to retrieve his book from Snape. He made his way to the staff room and knocked. Receiving no answer, he pushed the door ajar and witnessed a disturbing scene. Snape was holding his robes above his knees, revealing a bloody, mangled leg while Filch handed him "Blasted thing," Snape was saying. "How are you supposed to keep your eyes on all 3 heads at once?" Harry tried to shut the door quietly, but... "Potter!" Snape's face contorted with fury as he hastily dropped his robes. "I just wondered if I could have my book back." "Get out! Out!" Harry sprinted back upstairs and breathlessly recounted what he'd seen. "You know what this means? He tried to get past that 3-headed dog at Halloween. He's after whatever it's guarding. And I bet he let that troll in as a diversion." Hermione looked skeptical. "No, he wouldn't. I know he's not very nice, but he wouldn't steal something Dumbledore was keeping safe." "Honestly, Hermione," Ron snapped, "I'm with Harry. What's that dog guarding?" Harry went to bed with his mind buzzing, unable to forget the expression on Snape's face. The next morning dawned bright and cold. Delicious smells of fried sausages filled the great hall, along with excited chatter about the upcoming match. "You've got to eat some breakfast," Hermione urged. "I don't want anything." "Just a bit of toast," she wheedled. Harry felt terrible. Soon he'd be walking onto the field, exposed before the entire school. By 11 o'clock, everyone gathered in the stands surrounding the Quidditch pitch. Ron and Hermione joined their friends in the top row, unveiling a banner reading, "Potter for President," with a Gryffindor lion beneath, the paint magically flashing different colors. In the locker room, Wood gave his pre-game speech. "This is the best team Gryffindor's had in years. We're going to win. I know it," he said, glaring at them all. Harry followed the Weasley twins onto the field, his knees threatening to give way as cheers erupted from the crowd. Madame Hooch stood waiting, broom in hand. "Now I want a nice, fair game, all of you," she said, focusing particularly on Slytherin captain Marcus Flint. "Mount your brooms, please." Harry climbed onto his Nimbus 2000. At Madame Hooch's whistle, 15 brooms shot skyward. Lee Jordan commentated, "And the quaffle is taken immediately by Angelina Johnson of Gryffindor. What an excellent chaser that girl is." High above the game, Harry glided, searching for the snitch. He spotted a flash of gold, but it was only a reflection from a wristwatch. When a bludger came pelting his way like a cannonball, Harry dodged it as Fred Weasley chased after it. Suddenly, the crowd murmured as Adrian Pusey dropped the quaffle, distracted by a golden flash. Harry saw it too and dived downward. The Slytherin seeker Higgs followed, but Harry was faster. Wham! Marcus Flint blocked Harry deliberately, sending his broom spinning off course. In the confusion, the snitch disappeared again. As Harry dodged another bludger, his broom gave a frightening lurch. For a moment, he thought he would fall. It happened again. The broom seemed to be trying to buck him off. Harry realized with horror that he'd lost control. The broom zigzagged through the air, making violent movements that nearly unseated him. "Dunno what Harry thinks he's doing," Hagrid mumbled through his binoculars. "If I didn't know better, I'd say he'd lost control of his broom." Soon people across the stands were pointing at Harry as his broom rolled over and over. With a wild jerk, Harry swung off, dangling one-handed. "Can't nothing interfere with a broomstick except powerful dark magic," Hagrid said, voice shaking. Hermione grabbed the binoculars and scanned the crowd. "I knew it," she gasped. "Snape, look!" Ron saw Snape with his eyes fixed on Harry, muttering continuously. Before Ron could speak, Hermione disappeared. Meanwhile, the Weasleys tried unsuccessfully to pull Harry onto their brooms, while Flint scored repeatedly, unnoticed. Hermione fought her way to Snape's stand, knocking Professor Quirrell headfirst on her way. Crouching behind Snape, she whispered a spell, sending blue flames onto his robes. When Snape realized he was on fire, Hermione retreated. Having accomplished her goal, Harry regained control and clambered back onto his broom. He sped toward the ground, clapped his hand to his mouth, and coughed. Something gold fell into his palm. "I've got the snitch," he shouted, and the game ended in confusion. Later in Hagrid's hut, Ron explained, "It was Snape. He was cursing your broomstick." "Rubbish," said Hagrid. "Why would Snape do something like that?" Harry decided to tell the truth. He tried to get past that three-headed dog on Halloween. It bit him. We think he was trying to steal whatever it's guarding. Hagrid dropped the teapot. "How do you know about Fluffy?" "Fluffy? Yeah, he's mine. Bought him off a Greek chappie. I lent him to Dumbledore to guard the—" "Yes?" Harry asked eagerly. "Now, don't ask me any more," Hagrid said gruffly. "That's top secret." Despite their insistence about Snape, Hagrid wouldn't believe them. "I'm telling you, you're wrong. Snape wouldn't try and kill a student. Now listen, you're meddling in things that don't concern you. It's dangerous. You forget that dog and what it's guarding. That's between Professor Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel." "Aha!" said Harry triumphantly. "So there's someone called Nicholas Flamel involved, is there?" Hagrid looked furious with himself. Chapter 12. The Mirror of Erised. Christmas was coming. One morning in mid-December, Hogwarts woke to find itself covered in several feet of snow. The lake froze solid, and the Weasley twins were punished for bewitching snowballs to follow Professor Quirrell, bouncing off the back of his turban, while the Gryffindor common room and Great Hall had roaring fires. The drafty corridors had become icy. Worst of all were Professor Snape's classes in the dungeons, where their breath rose in a mist before them. "I do feel so sorry," said Draco Malfoy during potions, "for all those people who have to stay at Hogwarts for Christmas because they're not wanted at home." He was looking directly at Harry as he spoke. Harry, measuring powdered spine of lionfish, ignored him. It was true that Harry wasn't going back to Privet Drive for Christmas, but he didn't feel sorry for himself. This would probably be the best Christmas he'd ever had. Later, in the corridor, they found Hagrid dragging an enormous fir tree. When Malfoy made a cruel remark about Ron's family, Ron lunged at him, just as Snape appeared. "Weasley!" Snape took 5 points from Gryffindor, despite Hagrid defending Ron. "I hate them both," said Harry. "Malfoy and Snape." "Come on, cheer up. It's nearly Christmas," said Hagrid. "Tell you what, come with me and see the Great Hall. Looks a treat." The hall looked spectacular, with festoons of holly and mistletoe, and 12 towering Christmas trees, some sparkling with icicles, others glittering with hundreds of candles. Later, Harry confessed to Hagrid they'd been searching for information about Nicholas Flamel. "You what?" Hagrid looked shocked. "Listen here, I've told you. Drop it. It's nothing to you what that dog's garden." Once the holidays started, Ron and Harry were having too good a time to think much about Flamel. They had the dormitory to themselves and spent hours by the fire, eating toasted treats and plotting ways to get Malfoy expelled. Ron also began teaching Harry wizard chess, where the pieces were alive, and shouted advice at them. On Christmas morning, Harry woke to find a small pile of presents at the foot of his bed, something he hadn't expected at all. From Hagrid, a hand-whittled wooden flute. His aunt and uncle sent a 50-pence piece. Mrs. Weasley had knitted him an emerald green sweater and sent homemade fudge. Hermione gave him chocolate frogs. The last parcel contained something fluid and silvery gray. Ron gasped when Harry unwrapped it. "If that's what I think it is, they're really rare and really valuable." "What is it?" "It's an invisibility cloak," said Ron, awestruck. "Try it on." Harry threw the cloak around his shoulders and looked down at his feet. They were gone. A note had fallen out. "Your father left this in my possession before he died. It is time it was returned to you. Use it well. A very Merry Christmas to you." That night, Harry crept out of the dormitory under his new cloak. The whole of Hogwarts was open to him now. He decided to visit the restricted section of the library to search for information about Flamel. The library was pitch black and eerie. Harry lit a lamp and carefully stepped over the rope into the restricted section. The books didn't tell him much. Some had no titles, and one had a dark stain that looked horribly like blood. When he opened a large black volume, it let out a piercing, blood-curdling shriek. Panicking, he fled, passing Filch in the doorway. He ran blindly down corridors until he found himself near a tall suit of armor, with Filch and Snape's voices approaching. Harry slipped through a partially open door just in time. Inside what appeared to be an unused classroom stood a magnificent mirror as high as the ceiling, with an ornate gold frame and clawed feet. An inscription was carved around the top. "Erised stra eru oit uba kafru oit on wosi." Harry stepped in front of it and had to clap his hands to his mouth to stop from screaming. He saw not only himself, but a whole crowd of people behind him, though the room was empty. A woman standing right behind his reflection was smiling and waving. She had dark red hair and bright green eyes, just like his. Next to her stood a tall, thin black-haired man with glasses and untidy hair that stuck up at the back, just like Harry's. "Mum?" he whispered. "Dad?" They just smiled. Harry looked into the faces of others in the mirror and saw his family for the first time in his life. The Potters smiled and waved, and Harry stared hungrily back, his hands pressed flat against the glass. A powerful ache filled him, half joy, half terrible sadness. The next night, Harry brought Ron to see the mirror. But Ron didn't see Harry's family. Instead, he saw himself as head boy and Quidditch captain, holding both the House Cup and Quidditch Cup. On the third night, Harry returned alone and sat before the mirror, gazing at his family. "So, back again, Harry?" Harry looked behind him to find Albus Dumbledore sitting on one of the desks. "I didn't see you, sir." "Strange how nearsighted being invisible can make you," said Dumbledore, smiling. Dumbledore explained that the mirror of Erised showed nothing more or less than the deepest, most desperate desire of one's heart. You, who had never known your family, see them standing around you. Ronald Weasley, who has always been overshadowed by his brothers, sees himself standing alone, the best of all of them. However, Dumbledore continued, "This mirror will give us neither knowledge nor truth. Men have wasted away before it, entranced by what they have seen, or been driven mad, not knowing if what it shows is real or even possible." Dumbledore told Harry the mirror would be moved and asked him not to go looking for it again. It does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live. Remember that. As Harry prepared to leave, he asked Dumbledore what he saw when he looked in the mirror. "I?" I see myself holding a pair of thick woolen socks." Dumbledore smiled. "One can never have enough socks. Another Christmas has come and gone, and I didn't get a single pair. People will insist on giving me books." Back in bed, Harry wondered if Dumbledore had been entirely truthful. But then, he thought, as he shoved Scabbers off his pillow, it had been quite a personal question. Chapter 13. Nicholas Flamel. Dumbledore had convinced Harry not to go looking for the Mirror of Erised again, and for the rest of the Christmas holidays, the invisibility cloak stayed folded at the bottom of his trunk. Harry wished he could forget what he'd seen in the mirror as easily, but he couldn't. He started having nightmares about his parents disappearing in a flash of green light, while a high voice cackled with laughter. Hermione, who came back the day before term started, was torn between horror at the idea of Harry being out of bed and disappointment that he hadn't at least found out who Nicholas Flamel was. They had almost given up hope of ever finding Flamel in a library book, even though Harry was still sure he'd read the name somewhere. Harry had even less time than the other two because Quidditch practice had started again. Wood was working the team harder than ever. If they won their next match against Hufflepuff, they would overtake Slytherin in the House Championship for the first time in 7 years. During one particularly wet practice session, Wood gave the team some bad news. "Will you stop messing around?" he yelled at the Weasleys. "That's exactly the sort of thing that'll lose us the match. Snape's refereeing this time, and he'll be looking for any excuse to knock points off Gryffindor." George Weasley really did fall off his broom at these words. "Snape's refereeing?" he spluttered through a mouthful of mud. "When's he ever refereed a Quidditch match? He's not going to be fair if we might overtake Slytherin." Harry headed straight back to the Gryffindor common room, where he found Ron and Hermione playing chess. Speaking quietly, Harry told them about Snape's sudden desire to be a Quidditch referee. "Don't play," said Hermione at once. "I can't," said Harry. "There isn't a reserve seeker. If I back out, Gryffindor can't play at all." At that moment, Neville toppled into the common room, his legs stuck together with the leg locker curse. Hermione performed the counter curse, and Neville explained that Malfoy had cursed him outside the library. "You've got to stand up to him, Neville," said Ron. "He's used to walking all over people, but that's no reason to lie down in front of him and make it easier." "There's no need to tell me I'm not brave enough to be in Gryffindor. Malfoy's already done that," Neville choked out. Harry gave him his last chocolate frog. "You're worth 12 of Malfoy," Harry said. "The Sorting Hat chose you for Gryffindor, didn't it? And where's Malfoy?" "In stinking Slytherin." As Neville walked away, Harry looked at the famous wizard card. "Dumbledore again," he said, then gasped. "I found him. I found Flamel. Listen to this. Dumbledore is particularly famous for his defeat of the dark wizard Grindelwald in 1945, for the discovery of the 12 uses of dragon's blood, and his work on alchemy with his partner, Nicholas Flamel." Hermione jumped to her feet and sprinted up to the girls' dormitories, returning with an enormous old book. "Nicholas Flamel," she whispered dramatically, "is the only known maker of the Sorcerer's Stone." She pushed the book toward them, and Harry and Ron read. "The ancient study of alchemy is concerned with making the Sorcerer's Stone, a legendary substance with astonishing powers. The stone will transform any metal into pure gold. It also produces the elixir of life, which will make the drinker immortal. There have been many reports of the Sorcerer's Stone over the centuries, but the only stone currently in existence belongs to Mr. Nicholas Flamel, the noted alchemist and opera lover. Mr. Flamel, who celebrated his 665th birthday last year, enjoys a quiet life in Devon with his wife, Perenelle, 658. "See," said Hermione, "the dog must be guarding Flamel's sorcerer's stone. I bet he asked Dumbledore to keep it safe for him, because they're friends and he knew someone was after it." "A stone that makes gold and stops you from ever dying," said Harry. "No wonder Snape's after it. Anyone would want it." As the match drew nearer, Harry became increasingly nervous. The idea of overtaking Slytherin in the House Championship was wonderful, but would they be allowed to, with such a biased referee? Harry seemed to keep running into Snape wherever he went. At times, he even wondered whether Snape was following him. Potions lessons were turning into a weekly torture. Could Snape possibly know they'd found out about the Sorcerer's Stone? On match day, Harry hardly heard a word of Wood's pep talk as he pulled on his Quidditch robes. Ron and Hermione had found a place in the stands next to Neville, secretly ready to use the leg locker curse on Snape if necessary. "Don't want to pressure you, Potter," Wood said privately, "but if we ever need an early capture of the snitch, it's now. Finish the game before Snape can favor Hufflepuff too much." "Dumbledore's come to watch," Fred announced, peering out the door. Harry's heart did a somersault with relief. He was safe. There was simply no way that Snape would dare try to hurt him if Dumbledore was watching. The match began, and Harry circled the field like a hawk, searching for the snitch. Below, Malfoy was taunting Ron, Neville, and Hermione. "You know how I think they choose people for the Gryffindor team," said Malfoy loudly. "It's people they feel sorry for. See, there's Potter, who's got no parents. Then there's the Weasleys, who've got no money. You should be on the team, Longbottom. You've got no brains." Neville turned to face Malfoy. "I'm worth 12 of you, Malfoy," he stammered. Suddenly, Harry went into a spectacular dive. Hermione stood up, her crossed fingers in her mouth, as Harry streaked toward the ground like a bullet. "You're in luck, Weasley. Potter's obviously spotted some money on the ground," said Malfoy. Ron snapped and tackled Malfoy to the ground. Neville joined the fray against Crabbe and Goyle. Up in the air, Harry pulled out of the dive with the snitch clasped in his hand. The stands erupted. The game was over in record time. "Ron, where are you? The game's over. Harry's won. We've won. Gryffindor is in the lead," shrieked Hermione, dancing up and down. As Gryffindors came spilling onto the field, Harry felt a hand on his shoulder and looked up into Dumbledore's smiling face. "Well done," said Dumbledore quietly. "Nice to see you haven't been brooding about that mirror. Been keeping busy. Excellent." Snape spat bitterly on the ground. Later, as Harry was returning his broomstick to the shed, he spotted a hooded figure walking swiftly toward the forbidden forest. He recognized Snape's prowling walk and, curious, followed on his broom. Gliding silently over the trees, he landed in a towering beech tree above a shadowy clearing where Snape was confronting Professor Quirrell. "Students aren't supposed to know about the Sorcerer's Stone, after all," Snape was saying icily. "Have you found out how to get past that beast of Hagrid's yet?" But, Severus, You don't want me as your enemy, Quirrell," said Snape, taking a step toward him. An owl hooted loudly, and Harry nearly fell out of the tree. He steadied himself in time to hear Snape say, "Your little bit of hocus pocus. I'm waiting." But don't." "Very well," Snape cut in. "We'll have another little chat soon, when you've had time to think things over and decided where your loyalties lie." Back at the castle, Harry breathlessly told Ron and Hermione what he'd witnessed. "So we were right. It is the Sorcerer's Stone, and Snape's trying to force Quirrell to help him get it. He asked if he knew how to get past Fluffy, and he said something about Quirrell's hocus pocus. I reckon there are other things guarding the stone apart from Fluffy. Loads of enchantments. Probably. So you mean the stone's only safe as long as Quirrell stands up to Snape? Said Hermione in alarm. It'll be gone by next Tuesday, said Ron. Hagrid shuffled into view, hiding something behind his back. Just lookin', he said shifty. And what are you lot up ter? He looked suddenly suspicious. You're not still looking for Nicholas Flamel, are ya? Oh, we found out ages ago, said Ron. And we know what that dog's guarding. It's a sorcerer's stag. Shh! Hagrid looked around quickly. Don't go shouting about it. Harry seized the opportunity. There are a few things we wanted to ask you about what's guarding the stone apart from Fluffy. Shh! Said Hagrid again. Listen, come and see me later. After Hagrid left, Ron discovered he'd been researching dragons. Hagrid's always wanted a dragon, Harry remembered. He told me so the first time I ever met him. But it's against our laws, said Ron. Dragon breeding was outlawed by the Warlocks' Convention of 1709. When they visited Hagrid's hut later, they found it stifling hot despite the warm day outside. In the very heart of the fire lay a huge black egg. Where did you get it? Ron asked, crouching for a closer look. Won it, said Hagrid. Last night, I was down in the village, having a few drinks, and got into a game of cards with a stranger. But what are you going to do when it hatches? Asked Hermione. Well, I've been doing some reading. Hagrid pulled out a large book. Got this out of the library, Dragon Breeding for Pleasure and Profit. What I got there's a Norwegian Ridgeback. They're rare, them. Hagrid, you live in a wooden house, Hermione pointed out. But Hagrid wasn't listening. Days later, Hagrid sent a note with only 2 words. It's hatching. Harry suddenly had an idea. Charlie, your brother Charlie, in Romania, studying dragons. We could send Norbert to him. Hagrid finally agreed. A week later, they received Charlie's reply, offering to have friends collect Norbert from the tallest tower at midnight on Saturday. Their plan hit complications when Norbert bit Ron, whose hand swelled alarmingly. Worse still, Malfoy borrowed a book containing Charlie's letter, while Ron was in the hospital wing. It's too late to change the plan now, Harry told Hermione. We'll have to risk it. Saturday night arrived. They collected the crate-bound Norbert from a tearful Hagrid. Bye-bye, Norbert, Hagrid sobbed. Mummy will never forget you. Struggling under the invisibility cloak, they hauled the crate through the castle. Near the tower, they witnessed Professor McGonagall catching Malfoy. Detention, she shouted, and 20 points from Slytherin, wandering around in the middle of the night. You don't understand, Professor. Harry Potter's coming. He's got a dragon. What utter rubbish! How dare you tell such lies? Relieved, Harry and Hermione continued to the tower, where Charlie's friends arrived on broomsticks. They secured Norbert in a harness and flew away with him. Hearts light, they descended the spiral staircase, only to find Filch waiting at the bottom. Well, 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 he whispered. We are in trouble. They'd left the invisibility cloak on top of the tower. Chapter 15. The Forbidden Forest. Things couldn't have been worse. Filch led them to Professor McGonagall's study, where they sat in silence. Hermione trembled, while excuses raced through Harry's mind, each more feeble than the last. They were cornered, caught out of bed, up the astronomy tower, with Norbert and the invisibility cloak to explain. When Professor McGonagall appeared with Neville, Harry's heart sank. Harry, Neville burst out, I was trying to warn you. I heard Malfoy saying he was going to catch you. He said you had a drag. Harry tried to silence him, but too late. Professor McGonagall towered over them, looking ready to breathe fire. I would never have believed it of any of you, she said. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Explain yourselves. For once, Hermione had no answer. I think I've got a good idea of what's been going on, Professor McGonagall continued. You fed Draco Malfoy some cock and bull story about a dragon to get him into trouble. Harry caught Neville's eye, trying to convey this wasn't true. Poor Neville looked stunned and hurt. "I am disgusted," said Professor McGonagall. "4 students out of bed in one night. All 3 of you will receive detentions, and 50 points will be taken from Gryffindor." 50? Harry gasped. 50 points each, she clarified. 150 points lost, putting Gryffindor in last place. Harry felt as though the bottom had dropped out of his stomach. He didn't sleep that night, listening to Neville's muffled sobs. From being admired, Harry suddenly became the most hated student at Hogwarts. Even Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs turned against him, while Slytherins cheered his passing. Only Ron stood by him. Harry swore to himself not to meddle in things that weren't his business. He even offered to resign from the Quidditch team, though Wood thundered, "What good'll that do? How are we going to get any points back if we can't win at Quidditch?" Harry, Ron, and Hermione kept to themselves, studying late into the night for upcoming exams. Then, about a week before exams, Harry overheard Quirrell whimpering in a classroom. "No, no, not again, please," followed by all right, all right." He emerged pale and distressed, not noticing Harry. When Harry peered into the empty classroom, he suspected Snape had just left. Harry told Ron and Hermione what he'd heard. Ron was eager to investigate, but Hermione suggested going to Dumbledore. Harry pointed out they had no proof, and they weren't supposed to know about the stone or Fluffy. "If we just do a bit of poking around," Ron began. "No," said Harry flatly. "We've done enough poking around." The next morning, notes arrived for their detention. At 11 o'clock, Harry, Hermione, and Neville met Filch in the entrance hall and found Malfoy there too. "Follow me," said Filch, leading them outside. "I bet you'll think twice about breaking school rules again. It's just a pity they let the old punishments die out." As they approached Hagrid's hut, Harry felt relieved until Filch added, "It's into the forest you're going." Malfoy stopped dead. "The forest? We can't go in there at night. There's werewolves." Hagrid approached with his crossbow and fang. After dismissing Filch, he explained their task. A unicorn had been hurt badly, and they needed to find it. "And what if whatever hurt the unicorn finds us first?" Malfoy asked fearfully. "There's nothing that lives in the forest that'll hurt you if you're with me or Fang," Hagrid reassured them. Though he added that Fang was a coward. They split into 2 groups. Hagrid, Harry, and Hermione took one path, while Malfoy, Neville, and Fang took another. They would send up green sparks if they found the unicorn, red sparks if they encountered trouble. As Harry and Hermione walked with Hagrid, Harry asked, "Could a werewolf be killing the unicorns?" "Not fast enough," said Hagrid. "Unicorns are powerful magic creatures. I never knew one to be hurt before." Suddenly, Hagrid pushed them behind a tree and readied his crossbow. Something was slithering over the leaves nearby. After the sound faded, Hagrid muttered, "There's summit in here that shouldn't be." They continued cautiously until encountering a centaur named Ronan. After greeting him, Hagrid asked if he'd seen anything unusual. "Mars is bright tonight," Ronan said simply, gazing at the sky. A second centaur, Bane, joined them and repeated the same observation. Hagrid grew irritated at their cryptic responses. "Never try and get a straight answer out of a centaur," he grumbled as they moved on. "Ruddy stargazers." Suddenly, red sparks shot up in the distance. Hagrid rushed off, leaving Harry and Hermione alone. When he returned with Malfoy, Neville, and Fang, he explained that Malfoy had scared Neville as a joke. Hagrid changed the groups, sending Harry with Fang and Malfoy. Deep in the forest, they found the dead unicorn in a clearing, its pearly white body beautiful and sad against the dark leaves. As they approached, a hooded figure emerged from the shadows and began drinking the unicorn's blood. Malfoy screamed and fled with Fang. When the figure looked at Harry, pain seared through his scar. As he staggered backward, a centaur leaped over him and charged at the figure. "Are you all right?" asked the centaur, introducing himself as Firenze. "Yes, thank you. What was that?" Harry asked. Firenze offered Harry a ride back to Hagrid, explaining, "The forest is not safe at this time, especially for you." Two other centaurs, Ronan and Bane, appeared. Bane was furious. "You have a human on your back. Have you no shame?" "This is the Potter boy," Firenze replied. "The quicker he leaves this forest, the better." As they traveled through the trees, Firenze asked, "Harry Potter, do you know what unicorn blood is used for?" "No," Harry admitted. "It is a monstrous thing to slay a unicorn," Firenze explained. "The blood will keep you alive, even if you are an inch from death, but at a terrible price. You will have but a half-life, a cursed life." "But who'd be that desperate?" Harry wondered. "Unless all you need is to stay alive long enough to drink something else, something that will bring you back to full strength and power," Firenze continued. "Do you know what is hidden in the school at this very moment?" Harry's heart clenched. "The Sorcerer's Stone, but I don't understand who. Can you think of nobody who has waited many years to return to power?" Harry croaked, "Do you mean that was Vol?" Hermione appeared on the path, interrupting them, after Hagrid went to examine the unicorn. Firenze departed with a warning. "Good luck, Harry Potter. The planets have been read wrongly before now, even by centaurs. I hope this is one of those times." Back in the common room, Harry told Ron and Hermione everything. Snape wants the stone for Voldemort, and Voldemort's waiting in the forest. Harry said, pacing restlessly. "Stop saying the name," Ron whispered fearfully. "Harry, everyone says Dumbledore is the only one you know who was ever afraid of," Hermione offered comfortingly. "With Dumbledore around, you know who won't touch you." They talked until dawn broke. When Harry finally went to bed, he found his invisibility cloak folded beneath his sheets with a note, just in case. Chapter 16. Through the Trapdoor. In years to come, Harry would never quite remember how he had managed to get through his exams when he half expected Voldemort to come bursting through the door at any moment. Yet the days crept by, and there could be no doubt that Fluffy was still alive and well behind the locked door. It was sweltering hot, especially in the large classroom where they did their written papers with special new quills bewitched with an anti-cheating spell. Their practical exams were equally challenging, making pineapples tap dance for Professor Flitwick, turning mice into snuff boxes for Professor McGonagall, and brewing forgetfulness potions with Snape breathing down their necks. Harry's forehead pains had worsened since his trip into the forest. His old nightmare now featured a hooded figure dripping blood. Ron and Hermione didn't seem as worried about the stone. They didn't have burning scars or nightmares about Voldemort. After their final history of magic exam, the three friends wandered to the lake, where the Weasley twins and Lee Jordan were tickling the giant squid's tentacles. No more studying. Ron sighed happily, stretching out on the grass. "You could look more cheerful, Harry." Harry was rubbing his forehead. "I wish I knew what this means," he burst out angrily. "My scar keeps hurting. It means danger's coming." Harry suddenly jumped to his feet, turning white. "We've got to see Hagrid. Now," panted Hermione, hurrying to keep up. "Don't you think it's odd," said Harry, scrambling up the grassy slope, "that what Hagrid wants more than anything is a dragon, and a stranger turns up who just happens to have an egg? How many people wander around with dragon eggs? Lucky they found Hagrid, don't you think?" Hagrid was sitting outside his house, shelling peas. When Harry questioned him about the stranger with the dragon egg, Hagrid revealed that the cloaked stranger had bought him drinks while asking about Hogwarts creatures, particularly about Fluffy. "Well, yeah, how many three-headed dogs do you meet?" So I told him, "Fluffy's a piece of cake if you know how to calm him down. Just play him a bit o' music and he'll go straight off ter sleep." Hagrid suddenly looked horrified. "I shouldn't have told you that." The trio rushed to find Dumbledore, only to learn from Professor McGonagall that he had left for London on ministry business. Despite their warnings about the stone, she dismissed their concerns. "It's tonight," said Harry, once McGonagall was gone. "Snape's going through the trapdoor tonight. He's found out everything he needs, and now he's got Dumbledore out of the way." After confrontations with both Snape and McGonagall, the three returned to the common room. Harry made his decision. "I'm going out of here tonight, and I'm going to try and get to the stone first." "You're mad," said Ron. "So what?" Harry shouted. "If Snape gets hold of the stone, Voldemort's coming back. Haven't you heard what it was like when he was trying to take over? If I get caught before I can get to the stone, well, I'll have to go back to the Dursleys and wait for Voldemort to find me there. Voldemort killed my parents, remember?" Ron and Hermione exchanged looks. "You're right, Harry," said Hermione in a small voice. Then she added, "How do you think you'd get to the stone without us?" That night, Harry retrieved his invisibility cloak and the flute Hagrid had given him. As they prepared to leave, Neville confronted them, determined to prevent them from breaking more rules. "I won't let you do it," he said, blocking the portrait hole. I'll fight you." With deep regret, Hermione cast a full body bind on Neville. "I'm really, really sorry about this," she whispered. Under the invisibility cloak, they navigated past Mrs. Norris and tricked Peeves by pretending to be the Bloody Baron. When they reached the third-floor corridor, the door was already ajar. "Snape's already got past Fluffy," Harry whispered. Inside, they found the giant, three-headed dog, growling but growing drowsy as Harry played Hagrid's flute. While Harry kept playing, Ron and Hermione examined the trapdoor. "There's no way of climbing down. We'll just have to drop," Ron said after pulling the door open. Harry handed the flute to Hermione and lowered himself into the darkness. He landed on something soft and called up that it was safe. Ron and Hermione followed, only to discover they'd landed on Devil's Snare, its tendrils already wrapping around them. "Stop moving," Hermione ordered. "It's Devil's Snare." "Well, hurry up, I can't breathe," Harry gasped as the plant tightened around his chest. Hermione conjured her bluebell flames, causing the plant to release them. They proceeded down a stone passageway to a chamber filled with flying keys and broomsticks. Harry, the skilled seeker, spotted the correct key, large silver with bent wings, and captured it. The next chamber revealed a giant wizard's chess set that they would have to play across. Ron took command. "I'm going to be a knight," he said, positioning Harry as a bishop and Hermione as a castle. As the brutal game progressed, with pieces smashing opponents off the board, Ron made a terrible realization. "I've got to be taken," he said quietly. "No," Harry and Hermione shouted. "That's chess," Ron snapped. "You've got to make some sacrifices." Ron moved forward, and the White Queen struck him hard. He collapsed as Harry completed the checkmate, leaving their unconscious friend behind. Harry and Hermione pressed on. It passed through a chamber with an unconscious troll and entered Snape's challenge, a logic puzzle with 7 bottles. Hermione quickly solved the riddle to identify which potion would allow passage through the black flames ahead. "There's only enough for one of us," Harry noted, examining the tiny bottle. "You drink that," Harry told Hermione, pointing to the bottle that would let her return through the purple flames. "Get back and get Ron. Send Hedwig to Dumbledore." "Harry, you're a great wizard, you know," Hermione said, her eyes bright. "Not as good as you," said Harry, embarrassed. books and cleverness. There are more important things, friendship and bravery. Oh, Harry, be careful. Hermione drank her potion and walked through the purple fire. Harry swallowed the contents of the small bottle, feeling ice flood his body, and stepped through the black flames. In the final chamber, someone was waiting, but it wasn't Snape. It wasn't even Voldemort. Chapter 17. The Man with Two Faces. It was Quirrell. "You!" gasped Harry. Quirrell smiled. His face wasn't twitching at all. "Me," he said calmly. "I wondered whether I'd be meeting you here, Potter. But I thought, Snape." "Severus?" Quirrell laughed, and it wasn't his usual quivering treble, but cold and sharp. "Yes, Severus does seem the type, doesn't he? So useful to have him swooping around like an overgrown bat. Next to him, who would suspect? Poor, stuttering Professor Quirrell. But Snape tried to kill me." "No, no, no. I tried to kill you. Your friend Miss Granger accidentally knocked me over as she rushed to set fire to Snape at that Quidditch match. She broke my eye contact with you." Quirrell explained how Snape had been trying to save Harry all along, even refereeing his next match to protect him. "You're too nosy to live, Potter," Quirrell said, snapping his fingers. Ropes sprang out of thin air and wrapped themselves tightly around Harry. "Scurrying around the school on Halloween like that. For all I knew, you'd seen me coming to look at what was guarding the stone." "You let the troll in?" "Certainly. I have a special gift with trolls." Quirrell turned his attention to the mirror of Erised that stood behind him. "This mirror is the key to finding the stone." Harry struggled against his bonds. He needed to distract Quirrell from the mirror. "I saw you and Snape in the forest." "Yes," said Quirrell idly, examining the mirror. "He suspected me all along. Tried to frighten me, as though he could, when I had Lord Voldemort on my side." Quirrell stared hungrily into the mirror. "I see the stone. I'm presenting it to my master, but where is it? But Snape always seemed to hate me so much." "Oh, he does," said Quirrell casually. "He was at Hogwarts with your father. They loathed each other, but he never wanted you dead. But I heard you sobbing. I thought Snape was threatening you." A spasm of fear crossed Quirrell's face. "Sometimes I find it hard to follow my master's instructions. He is a great wizard and I am weak." "You mean he was there in the classroom with you?" Harry gasped. "He is with me wherever I go," said Quirrell quietly. "I met him when I traveled around the world. Lord Voldemort showed me how wrong I was. There is no good and evil. There is only power, and those too weak to seek it." Quirrell cursed under his breath as he studied the mirror. "I don't understand. Is the stone inside the mirror? Should I break it?" Harry's mind raced. If he looked in the mirror, he might see where the stone was hidden. But how could he look without Quirrell noticing? "What does this mirror do? How does it work? Help me, master," Quirrell cried. To Harry's horror, a voice answered, seeming to come from Quirrell himself. "Use the boy. Use the boy." "Potter, come here," Quirrell commanded, clapping his hands. The ropes binding Harry fell away. "Look in the mirror and tell me what you see." Harry approached the mirror, thinking desperately, "I must lie about what I see." He closed his eyes, stepped in front of the mirror, and opened them again. His reflection smiled and pulled a blood-red stone from its pocket, then winked and put it back. And as it did, Harry felt something heavy drop into his real pocket. Somehow, he had gotten the stone. "Well," demanded Quirrell, "what do you see?" "I see myself shaking hands with Dumbledore," Harry lied. "I've won the House Cup for Gryffindor." Quirrell cursed and pushed him aside. As Harry moved away, he heard the high voice speak again. "He lies. He lies. Potter, Quirrell shouted. Tell me the truth. Let me speak to him. Face to face, the voice whispered. Master, you are not strong enough. I have strength enough for this. Harry watched, paralyzed with fear, as Quirrell unwrapped his turban. Where there should have been the back of his head, there was a face, chalk white with glaring red eyes and slits for nostrils, like a snake. Harry Potter, it whispered, see what I have become? Mere shadow and vapor. I have form only when I can share another's body. The terrible face explained how unicorn blood had strengthened him, and how the elixir of life would help him create a body of his own. Now, why don't you give me that stone in your pocket? Harry stumbled backward. The face of Voldemort smiled. Don't be a fool. Better save your own life and join me, or you'll meet the same end as your parents. They died begging me for mercy. Liar! Harry shouted. How touching, Voldemort hissed. I always value bravery. Your parents were brave. I killed your father first, and he put up a courageous fight. But your mother needn't have died. She was trying to protect you. Never! Harry sprang toward the flame door, but at Voldemort's command, Quirrell seized him. The moment Quirrell's hand touched Harry, pain seared across Harry's scar. To his surprise, Quirrell let go, howling in agony. His fingers were blistering before their eyes. Master, I cannot hold him. My hands. Then kill him, fool, and be done, screeched Voldemort. As Quirrell raised his hand to perform a deadly curse, Harry reached up and grabbed Quirrell's face. Quirrell rolled away, his face blistering too. Harry realized that Quirrell couldn't touch his bare skin without suffering terrible pain. He jumped forward and clung to Quirrell's arm. The pain in Harry's head was blinding, but he held on as Quirrell screamed. He heard Voldemort's yells of, "Kill him!" and other voices crying, "Harry! Harry!" Then everything went black. Harry awoke to see the smiling face of Albus Dumbledore above him. Sir, the stone, Quirrell. Calm yourself, dear boy, said Dumbledore. Quirrell does not have the stone. Harry was in the hospital wing, surrounded by gifts from admirers. Dumbledore explained that he had arrived just in time to pull Quirrell off Harry, though Harry had been doing very well on his own. The stone had been destroyed. But your friend, Nicholas Flamel. Nicholas and I have had a little chat and agreed it's all for the best, said Dumbledore. He and his wife have enough elixir stored to set their affairs in order. And then, yes, they will die. Seeing Harry's amazement, Dumbledore smiled. To one as young as you, I'm sure it seems incredible. But to Nicholas and Perenelle, it really is like going to bed after a very, very long day. After all, to the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. Harry asked why Voldemort had wanted to kill him in the first place. Dumbledore sighed deeply. Alas, the first thing you ask me, I cannot tell you, not today. When you are older, when you are ready, you will know. But why couldn't Quirrell touch me? Your mother died to save you. If there is one thing Voldemort cannot understand, it is love. Love as powerful as your mother's for you leaves its own mark, not a scar, no visible sign, to have been loved so deeply, even though the person who loved us is gone, will give us some protection forever. It is in your very skin. Harry asked about his invisibility cloak, and Dumbledore revealed that it had belonged to Harry's father. When Harry mentioned that Quirrell had told him Snape hated him because he hated Harry's father, Dumbledore explained, well, they did rather detest each other. And then, your father did something Snape could never forgive. What? He saved his life. Finally, Harry asked how he had retrieved the stone from the mirror. Ah, Now, I'm glad you asked me that. It was one of my more brilliant ideas. Only one who wanted to find the stone, find it, but not use it, would be able to get it. When Hagrid visited, he was overcome with remorse for having told the evil Git how to get past Fluffy. "You could have died," he sobbed. "Hagrid," said Harry, shocked. "He'd have found out somehow. This is Voldemort we're talking about." As a farewell gift, Hagrid gave Harry a leather-bound book full of wizard photographs of his parents. Harry was too moved to speak. At the end-of-year feast, the Great Hall was decorated in Slytherin colors to celebrate their 7th consecutive House Cup victory. But Dumbledore had a few last-minute points to dish out. He awarded 50 points to Ron for the best-played game of chess Hogwarts has seen in many years. Another 50 points went to Hermione for the use of cool logic in the face of fire. 60 points to Harry for pure nerve and outstanding courage. This tied Gryffindor with Slytherin, but then Dumbledore added, "It takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends." I therefore award 10 points to Mr. Neville Longbottom. The hall erupted in cheers as Gryffindor won the House Cup. Harry caught Snape's eye and knew the professor's feelings toward him hadn't changed, but it didn't worry him. Life would be back to normal next year, or as normal as it ever was at Hogwarts. It was the best evening of Harry's life, better than winning at Quidditch or Christmas. He would never forget it. As they boarded the Hogwarts Express to return home, Ron invited Harry and Hermione to stay with him over the summer. "Thanks," said Harry. "I'll need something to look forward to." At King's Cross, Uncle Vernon was waiting, looking furious at the sight of Harry carrying an owl in a cage. "See you over the summer then," Harry told his friends. "Hope you have, a good holiday," said Hermione, looking uncertainly at Uncle Vernon. "Oh, I will," said Harry, a grin spreading over his face. "They don't know we're not allowed to use magic at home. I'm going to have a lot of fun with Dudley this summer."